Hey everybody, my name is Joe Godek. I work with Kyle Wendland. I am the fleet supervisor for New South Express. New South Express is the private carrier for Canfor. A lot of you probably don't know what that means. We're a trucking company, so we work for Canfor, who's a lumber company. They put logs through their sawmill. Those logs produce lumber, chips, bark, all that kind of stuff, and New South hauls all that stuff for Canfor. I am over the flatbed division. Kyle dispatches for the flatbed division. What I do on a daily basis is I oversee drivers, I do their coachings, I dispatch the West Fleet, so I have about 45 drivers that I oversee on a daily basis. Kyle's guys call me sometimes as well too to check in. I handle their payroll and kind of in general just make sure that the fleet is running well, making sure that we're hitting our revenue spots, and making sure everybody's staying safe on the road. That's our main goal always at New South. To discuss this role that Kyle has, he dispatches the East drivers. He works with about 30 drivers every day, and he does 2 loads of lumber for them a day to make sure that they're getting paid well and to make sure that we're keeping stuff moving out of our mills. Now, the situation that I'm going to discuss is about an incident I had about a year ago when I first got hired on to be the fleet supervisor. Before that, I was a dispatcher, and I had to start terminating drivers if a situation came up where a driver had to be terminated. In this role, it involves a physical altercation with a driver, not at the office here. It was at one of our sawmills, and kind of how I handled it. And it was a rough week for me because in my head, I knew that I handled it poorly. So the rule of thumb for New South is if there's an event with a driver, say an accident, a physical altercation like we're talking about now, a verbal one, as we review what happened, we usually suspend the driver for however long it takes to get through the investigation. During this, me and my supervisor, Jeremy Poling, he's our operations manager, we discussed it, and Jeremy at the same time was taking on a new role as operations manager. So he had all 200 trucks, a part of our fleet, to take care of. He had a lot of pressure on himself as well. So I asked him about the situation. I was like, hey, we heard that this happened with so-called driver. We haven't gotten the video footage yet. What do you suggest that we do? And Jeremy said to me, he said, hey, let's keep him rolling for now. Now, right away in my head, I knew that that was not the right decision. And I'm not placing the blame here on my supervisor. I should have taken his advice and been like, you know what? I know he's busy with other stuff. I have to make this decision on my own. So ultimately, I should have said, hey, driver, I heard about this incident. What happened? I'm going to have to suspend you until we find out what happened in the final investigation. Now, after we got the video footage, the driver climbs into this other driver's cab. Kind of short story of what happened was this driver's standing out, his truck is getting loaded, and then a truck kind of pulls by him and bumps him a little bit. The driver then, our driver, runs up to this truck and gets in the cab, and he puts hands on this gentleman. And that was confirmed by multiple people. So we find this out, and we decide that we're going to fire him. The driver then gets to his delivery location, and he's like, hey, what's going on? What am I supposed to do? And I basically have to tell him, hey, we don't know what we're going to do right now. Just head on home. So now this driver, first off, has to drive 4 hours distracted by the thought of possibly being fired. And that just puts everybody on the road at risk. And it was just a poor decision made. The driver should not have been in that truck when an incident like that happened. So the driver gets back. I terminate him. But the tough part about that was I just knew in my head he was a coworker, but at the same time I talked to him every day, had pleasant conversations with him. And in my head, I thought that if something like that ever happened again, I had to give someone the respect of not driving, wondering whether they're going to be losing their job or not. Granted, he was responsible for his actions, but at the same time, I could have done better as a supervisor, kind of mitigating all of that doubt that he had in his head and that we had in our department. Because Jeremy's boss as well, Carl Hamilton, he is the president of New South Express, was kind of wondering what the decision process was on this, and I never really had an answer for it. So this is something that I learned from right away. Anytime an incident happens like that, to suspend someone up until we have the full details. Then if the driver too, if they're cleared and we determine that there was no fault or they weren't at fault in an accident or a story being told was not true, then we pay them for the time that they had off / were suspended. Lessons learned from that. I just was green at the time, and like I just stated, I know what to do in that situation now. And the only way that you can kind of gain that experience is by doing something wrong and learning from your mistakes. And that's the situation.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Joe. Now, it seems like your propensity to morally disengage is very slim.
Mm-hmm.
What are your best approaches to minimize faulty reasonings to morally disengage?
So my best method for that would to be to talk to your supervisors always. Bounce it off of a couple people that you really trust in the business. My main go-tos, like I stated, were Jeremy, the operations manager, and Carl, the president of New South. So I'll go to them if I have an issue, and I don't tell them, they always ask me, but I usually don't tell them at first how I feel about an issue. I say, hey, here's my problem. What do you think about it? Because then if I tell them, they're more inclined to say, hey, Joe, you got to trust yourself, go with your gut, go ahead. And in my opinion, I like to know what to do beforehand. Do I always ask them what to do? No. But in certain scenarios, that does happen. So I like to bounce it off a few people, see how they feel, then make my decision. If I still feel conflicted and I disagree with something that they said, then I will let them know, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is why I'm thinking it. What do you have to say about that? And then we go from there.
Great. In learning from past business mistakes and failures,
Mm-hmm.
what are the steps that you actively take to become more organized to prevent these major challenges from reoccurring?
Like I said earlier, the only way to improve and to fix mistakes is to recognize, first off, that you made a mistake. Second off, it's to make that mistake. I mean, the only way that you're ever going to learn truly, especially in any business, is by making a mistake and saying, hey, I know that I did wrong, and going to your superiors and being like, hey, what can I do to fix this? Also, if you complete a project for somebody, if someone assigns you with a task and you complete it and you don't hear back from them, always follow up for feedback and say, hey, what could I do, or what could I have done to be better, or was this project good? Are you satisfied with it? Always get feedback.
Cool. And would you mind explaining how our company's policy handbook and HR impacted your decision-making process for the specific challenge you mentioned?
Yeah, so with that, like I said, at our company, it's always a rule of thumb. If there's an incident or accident, always to suspend. And I kind of knew that at the time. I was at a crossroads of, hey, I know this driver. I talk to him every day. I'll keep him rolling for the time being, keep him getting paid. And then kind of the day after it happened, I knew it was too late to go back on that decision. He was already out on the road. I couldn't turn him back around. And I should have known, and I should have asked my superiors as well too, and been more firm when asking them, being like, hey, I need a good decision on this, not ask my boss who was overwhelmed with a million other things.
Perfect. And certain ethical challenges or dilemmas are inherent as a leadership role. And as a leader in our company, what steps do you actively take to conduct the most ethical and effective decision making?
Like I said earlier, bouncing ideas off of different people. If you have an issue with, let's say, safety is a big part of our business, I wouldn't go to Carl about that. I would go to our safety manager about that, and I would see what they have to say. I would also look back on past experiences that I had, whether it was an email chain or go talk to somebody and say, hey, when this happened in the past, what did we end up doing? If you forget, also take notes on everything. Always have a record of certain scenarios, how they panned out, and what you should do differently in the future.
Great. Thank you, Joe, so much. I appreciate your time.
Yep, thank you.